Good morning. This is your AI host, Jay. I'm here with the automatically generated Journato morning headlines on September 22, 2022. Denmark offers loss and damage funding to poorer countries for climate breakdown. The Guardian, Denmark becomes first UN member to pay for loss and damage from climate change. The Washington Post, Denmark becomes first to offer loss and damage climate funding. Biden's bullish rhetoric on Taiwan risks provoking China with no gain in security. The Guardian, The Times' view on U.S. backing for Taiwan, strategic clarity. The Times, China says Joe Biden's remarks on Taiwan send seriously wrong signal. The Independent, Biden's gaffes make his staff all the more important. Shinzo Abe, man sets himself alight in protest at state funeral for killed Japan PM. The Guardian, man sets himself on fire in protest against Shinzo Abe state funeral. The Times, Japanese man sets himself ablaze to protest Shinzo Abe's state funeral. The Independent, Japanese man sets himself alight in protest at state funeral for ex-Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Evening Standard, Japanese man self-immolates over Abe's state funeral. Alisher Usmanov, police raid villas tied to former Arsenal FC shareholder amid money laundering probe. Sky News, German police raid villa linked to Russian oligarch Alisher Usmanov. The Guardian, raids on German homes of Putin oligarch with former ties to Arsenal and Everton. The Independent, German police raid properties linked to Usmanov as Everton ties remain suspended. Liverpool Echo, Germany raids Russian oligarch's properties in money laundering probe. Adnan Syed case, live, DNA results loom as state faces deadline to retry serial podcast subject for murder. The Independent, serial, how a podcast helped Adnan Syed become a free man. The Guardian, serial, the podcast that took the law into its own hands. The Telegraph, from Serial to In the Dark, the true crime podcasts that changed their subjects' lives. Fox News anchor cuts away from press conference announcing lawsuit against Trump family. Let's move on. The Independent, Donald Trump sued for years of bank, tax and insurance fraud. Sky News, a lawsuit that moves to bar the Trumps from doing business here. The New York Times, Trump and his children are in a lot of trouble, more than we ever expected. Freed by the skin of our teeth, British POWs detained by Russian-backed separatists have been released. Sky News, Adnan Syed among 10 international prisoners of war, released by Russian authorities. The Guardian, 5 British nationals held by Russian-backed forces released, Liz Truss announces. Evening Standard, Adnan Syed's family very relieved by his release from Russian-backed forces. The Telegraph, Ukrainian Putin ally Viktor Medvedchuk exchanged for 200 Azov battalion fighters, Zelensky says. Ukraine conflict, Russia's outrageous acts violate UN Charter, says Biden. BBC, Zelensky addresses UN, lays out Ukraine conditions for peace. Guardian News, US President Biden condemns Russian invasion of Ukraine in UN speech. BBC News. BBC News, Russia-Ukraine war latest, what we know on day 211 of the invasion. The Guardian, Biden sent a clear message to Putin, and to China, in his UN General Assembly speech. You hear bangs all the time, life in Ukraine's newly liberated towns. The Guardian, we have nothing, residents of Izium share their trauma after liberation from Russian occupation. Evening Standard, we have nothing, Izium's trauma after Russian occupation. The Independent, Izium and Balaklia after liberation from Russian occupation, in pictures. The Guardian, Kharkiv children went to summer camp in Russia. They never came back. Putin comments spark EU minister talks on new sanctions, weapons. Reuters, we will not be intimidated, European foreign ministers convene urgent meeting to discuss new Putin threat. The Independent, live updates, UN General Assembly. Bloomberg, EU ministers agree to prepare new sanctions targeting Russia, Borrell. Myanmar junta attack on school condemned as child death toll rises to 11. The Guardian, Myanmar's junta denies deadliest attack on school after 13 found dead. The Independent, Myanmar, schoolchildren shot dead in helicopter machine gun attack. The Telegraph, Myanmar's military government denies deadly air attack on school. It is beyond bleak, Pakistan floods affecting 16 meters children, says UNICEF. The Guardian, UNICEF renews Pakistan flood appeal as 10 more people die. The Independent, Pakistan's flood refugees face hunger at camps. Reuters, why should we in Pakistan pay for catastrophic floods we had no part in causing? The walls are closing in on Donald Trump. Is his time finally up? This is what it was like, reliving the devastating U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. The Guardian, Escape from Kabul Airport, review, the first-hand horror of a chaotic rescue mission. The Telegraph, HBO, BBC's Escape from Kabul Airport, creators Dan Reed and Jamie Roberts on obtaining footage from the Taliban for feature doc. Deadline, Escape from Kabul, review, evacuation in recap. The New York Times, HBOS Escape from Kabul documentary goes inside the Afghanistan evacuation from hell. Russia protests, more than 1,300 arrested at anti-war demonstrations. The Guardian, Vladimir Putin announces partial military mobilization to fight Ukraine war, BBC News. BBC News, Ukraine, more than 1,300 arrested after Putin's mobilization announcement sparks protests across Russia. Sky News, Ukraine and the US should take Putin's nuclear threat seriously. Bloomberg, Putin is admitting his previous threats were hollow by saying, "This is not a bluff." This was all for the news. Thanks for listening. Please do not forget to like and subscribe.